Hey guys, Master Beetle back here, and I told you I was gonna bring a deck profile, and I know y'all was sad that I wasn't using Mega Colony, that I sold my soul to the Chronos called Gear Chronicle to top an AIG, but it's okay. It's the one nobody uses. But we're back here with that Mega Colony, and guess what, fellas? I'm gonna give you that Mega Colony madness. Not one deck profile, not two deck profiles, not three deck profiles. I'm gonna give you 5 deck profiles of Mega Colony just to suit that addiction that we all have to them insects. Anyway, we're gonna start off with machinings. Now, this, in my opinion, is one of the more viable builds of Mega Colony right now. Machinings. Just for how fast-paced the meta is, I feel like Machinings has a good chance of keeping up against most meta decks, I'd say. Anyway. Your starter is Little B. You run him because he's machining, and for, you could do little combos of Little B for his ability of Act, Rear Guard, put it into the Soul, choose any another Rear Guards of machining, stand it, and give him plus 3k. So you run them because of that, because of those two reasons. On to your trigger lineup. The same old. 4 Firefly, 4 Scorpion, 4 Draw Trigger, Machining, and 4 Machining Honeybee. Now, I got that new machining heal for y'all, because Mega Colony, I had to shell out for the new heal, man, just for you guys. Mostly for myself, but for you guys too. Anyway, if y'all don't already know, Firefly, you run him because of Counterblast 1, when it's placed on Vanguard. If you have a Vanguard machining its name, pay the cost. If you do, choose one of your rear guards and stand it. Choose one of your opponent's rear guards, and that unit cannot stand during their next stand phase. So that's why you run it, man. Stand if you already used the Little B and you had to re-ride War Sickle or Stag Beetle just to get your little things off again. You do them for that, because this game, this deck doesn't care if you breeze it. In all honesty, the way I play this deck, that I like to stay on grade 2 to make sure they ride first, because in this deck you want to stride first so you can stride destroyer. Anyway, doing a little new lineup, doing it in reverse, see if you guys like this better. So if you like this better, comment, rate, subscribe down below. If you like the other one better, tell me how you feel about it in the comments. Anyway, you run 4 Rebel Mutant Star Shield. You run them because you're an unflipping PG, and this deck needs unflip badly. You counterblast quite a lot in this deck, so that's why you run 4 of the unflip. You run 4 Black Soldier. Now, you run Black Soldier because he's the 10k attacker for machinings, and this deck is very aggressive. You want to stun your opponent's Vanguards and then punishing them for not drive checking and just kill them off as fast as possible. So you run 4 of that. Good for my grade 2 rush game, which I love. Anyway, you run 3 Cicada, or like Coxus, or whatever it's called. It's a Beetle, machining Beetle. You run 3 of these because of its rear guard skill. When an attack hits the Vanguard during the battle, this unit boosted to machining. You can choose on your opponent's rear guard and stun it. It's free. This is what you run it because it's free. I run 3 of it so I could stick one behind my Vanguard and stick one behind my rear guards. Very good during my my grade 2 rush turns, because I normally like to slide the starter to the side, so I have that open to play this card. And the deck's changed, fellas. I'm gonna show you how it's changed. So I run 3 of that because we're not running as many grade 1s as we used to. We're running only 13. We run 2 Pitch to Strides. Now, I know in my other machining deck profiles, I was a strong advocate of 3 Pitch to Strides, but here's the problem with that. I saw it in my hand too often. I saw it in the damage too often. I saw it when I already had grade 3s to stride and I didn't really need it. Most of the time, anyway. So that's why now I only play 2. Because I see most other machining decks only play 2, and I saw that one machining deck that topped in Atlanta, Georgia. The BWC. I saw that. He was only playing that at 2, so I was like, hey, I'll try it. And, I like it. Because This way, you're only running 6 non-machining cards opposed to me running 7. So, because this deck needs machining counterblast. Needs it. Anyway. Running only 13 grade 1s, because this time I'm trying out 12 grade 2s, because this deck loves the grade 2 game. It lives off of it. Because of this guy. This guy makes your grade 2 game. You run 4 Machining Mosquito. Let's see here. You run 4 of it because of his continuous rearguard ability of, during your turn, if you have a Vanguard of Machining and all my opponent's units are at rest, he gains plus 2k in the auto skill of rearguard once per turn. When his unit attack hits the Vanguard, choose one of my rearguards, stand it, and then choose my opponent's rearguard and stun it. The simple fact that I get aggression and control is real good. It can put my opponent in a spot if they can't guard this guy. Because, like, what I usually like to do is, if I have another column, right? So, like, say I have one right here. I'd like to tack my Vanguard at a rear guard, if they have a rear guard. If they guarded it, pump up him, attack at the rear guard again, swing at the Vanguard, stand up, attack the Vanguard again. So that's the combo I like to use. Sadly, you can't loop him, because it's only once per turn, but, it's alright. He's an extraordinary card nonetheless. Very extraordinary. You always play him at 4 in a machining deck. Anyway, next card I'm playing at 4 are 4 of Red Soldier. You play Red Soldier because he's a 12k attacker. You could stick Firefly behind him for 16, and you can stick a Draw Trigger behind him for 17. Plus, you can stick a Draw Trigger behind this guy for 16 also. So, we're never shortage on boosters in Mega Colony Machinings. So you run 4 of him because he's a 12k attacker. And usually I like to have him on side to attack a grade 1 rear guard. Then swing at the Vanguard most of the time for 18. 18. Or, what I like to do is a cheeky little play. If I call a grade 1 at rest, stand it. So this is going to be attacking for 21 at the Vanguard. Most of the time they can't guard it. So this stands again. And if you can't attack the Vanguard, it's attack another rear guard in the front row if they have one. So, running at 4. And we have a new grade 2. Now, initially, I didn't like this card, because this deck is very counterblast heavy. You're never going to use this, I told myself, but I saw most other Mega Colony decks playing this card, and I was like, I'll give him a try at 3. Now I gave him a try at 4. It's 4 Tarantula. Now, you run Tarantula for he's your ride target, grade 2. For the case in point is if your opponent's rushing you. You ride Tarantula. Then you call Machining Beetle. If it hits, that's 2 stuns for 1 counterblast. Now, I don't like using his skill if I don't have to. If I feel like I have to use his skill because I'm getting rushed, I'm going to counter rush and use his skill. That's what I really like about this deck. It's very aggro. It's like aggro control. That's what I like about it. It'll beat my opponent down and make sure they stay there. So I run it at 4 now, just to make sure I ride it. So yeah. He's new to the grade 2 lineup. We'll see how he fares. So far, he's been faring very well in testing. But on to the grade 3s. The grade 3s have also seen a change. I'm only running 3 Stag Beetle now. He's still your ideal ride target, of course. Stag Beetle is always going to be your ideal ride target. But I run him at 3 so I could play a tech grade 3, which I'll show you in a minute. If you guys don't already know what he does, his skill is when it's placed on Vanguard, choose 2 machines for your soul and call them at rest, and he gains power equal to their original attack power. So most of the time he's going to get him plus 16, plus 15 power. He's really good if you ride grade 3 first, just to get that rush. But normally you want to stride first to make sure they're going to have to ditch 2 cards to stride. Or 3 cards if they don't have another stride fighter or grade 3. So I run him at 3 just because he's your first ideal ride target. And then I run 3 Warsickle. Now you run 3 Warsickle because he's a faster way of getting a card out from the soul. You don't run the Legion because in this meta, this fast-paced meta, you don't have time to waste on hoping you have a card to Persona Blast and a turn to Legion on the same boat. You don't have that type of time in this deck. The game should not be going on that long. So you play 3 of him. He's really good for his limit break ability. If you ran out of destroyers, you have open counterblasts. It's Limit Break 4, Counterblast 2. At the end of battle, this unit attacked the Vanguard and did not hit. You pay the cost. If you do, choose one of your opponent's Vanguards, and that unit cannot stand during your next stand phase. But you run them for Wars. You run War Sickle much like you run Stag Beetle. You run them for that auto Counterblast 1 machining. When it's placed on Vanguard, choose one of my machinings from Soul and call it to rearguard at rest. So that's why you play him. Also, he's a good ride target if you rode a non-machining grade 1, which happens sometimes. So instead of going into him, I'll go into him first, and then, like, if I don't have a field, then I'll go into him, you know, just to call out the machinings that I put into the Soul. Which is most likely him and the starter. So you can get that plus 16. If it's needed. Most time it's not needed, but there you go. And then the tech. The very spicy tech, which I actually like in the deck quite a lot. I got this idea from the deck list from the Atlanta BWC machining deck not too long ago. It's Machine Spark Hercules. Now I run Spark Hercules at 2 because of his Limit Break ability of Limit Break 4, Counterblast 2 machinings. When this unit attacks a Vanguard, if all my opponent's units are at rest, he gains plus 10k and 1 critical, and I choose my opponent's rear guards and stun it. Now, he's really good against, I never faced it, but 7C's, Grade 1 Rush. Really good against that deck. Decks that try to stall me out, like Saint Guard. Very good against Saint Guard, you know, for the fact that I could just push them early game if I haven't pushed them already from Grade 2 stalling. The fact that I could just push them again is really nice. You should win most of the time not your first stride, not your second stride, but like your 4th, 3rd, or 5th stride. That's normally when you win the game with this deck, because like it's so aggressive in pushing. Like, you know, your opponent, if they couldn't keep up by rewriting grade 3s and then striding, like, you're most likely going to win. So anyway, that's it for the grade 3 lineup. I run 8 because, you know, I like 8 grade 3s in this format, stride format, because, you know, you want to stride as much as possible and you only have 2 stride fodder. So that's why. Anyway, on to the strides. You're gonna play 4 Destroyer. You play 4 Destroyer because this is machinings, and you play 4. I've seen people play 3, and I'm like, no, this is the best card in your deck. You will play 4 no matter what. I've gone into him 4 times. You're gonna play 4 no matter what, because of his act skill. Once per turn, Counterblast machining. If I have a heart with machining in its name, choosing my opponent's rear guards, stun it. And then, that's important. If the number of rear guards with machining in its name I have is 4 or more, choosing my opponent's Vanguards and stun it. Now, this is very good because you use it for the Vanguard stun. The rear guard stun is nice, but you use it for the Vanguard stun. Now, a ruling that most people don't know is that your opponent does not have to have a rear guard for you to pay and use his skill. You could pay it just to stun their Vanguard. They don't have to have a rear guard. They don't have to have a rear guard at rest. As long as I could pay the skill, I could use it for the Vanguard stun if I have 4 or more. So yeah, you play 4 of him because he's the best card in your deck. And then another card that I find people cutting down to 2, cutting down to 3. 3 is okay, but cutting down to 2 or not even running in their Mega Colony decks, which I find outrageous, is 4 Stun Beetle. Now, Stun Beetle is extraordinary in this deck, especially since you're pushing with this guy. You're grade 2. Like, your opponent is meant not to have that many cards in hand. So that's why I like it when I run out of these guys. If I have Counterblast, or like I know my opponent has grade 3s in hand, but they don't have enough guard, I'm gonna go into this guy just to make sure they can't ride. Just to make sure their Vanguard's stunned. They could still stride. That's okay with me. Stride. Go ahead. I don't care. Anyway, you run him because of his GB2, Counterblast 2, which is a face-down Stun Beetle and turn face up. When his attack hits a Vanguard, I choose all my opponent's Vanguards and they cannot stand during my opponent's next stand phase. And my opponent cannot normal ride during my opponent's ride phase. Next ride phase. Now, they could still ride off of effects, so some cards get around it, but most of the time, your opponent cannot superior ride. So, you know, superior riding gets around this card, but The only deck that can, like, consistently superior ride is 7 Seas. And I only played 7 Seas once. Not with this deck, but my Chrome Fang deck. But you'll see that in the tournament report. So I play 4 of him and 4 of him. These are the cards that you must play 4 of in this deck. If you want to win, honestly. That's in my opinion. You play 4 of those because they're good. Then I play 2 Opterandus. Now, Opterandus is an extraordinary card. I wish it wasn't a discard. I wish it was just a Counterblast 1 and a Soul Blast. Because, Mega Colony decks use Soul, so a Counterblast 1 and a Soul Blast would have been reasonable in my opinion. But it's a discard, so I digress. You run it at 2 against those decks that, if you know you can't consistently stun their Vanguard, and you know they're gonna call board next turn, they hardly have any board. You go into this. This is your Grand Blue counter. This is your Royals counter. I guess if you can't stun their Vanguard, it's your Royals counter, Shadows counter. It's your definitely Pale Moon counter. So I run it at 2. Just because, the high cost of, it's GB2, Counterblast 2, and discard a card, and my opponent cannot call cards, period, during his next turn. It's a very strong effect, but I feel like it's overcosted. And in this type of meta, hand is everything. Anyway, I run 2. Now, this is a card that I find most people run at 1, or like they don't run it at all, is 2 Staggle Dipper. Now, you're probably wondering to me, well, Master Beetle, why are you running 2 Staggle Dipper? I'm going to tell you why I'm running 2 Staggle Dipper. This card is the card that you use to finish the game. Because in this deck, Machinings always have a board. You always have some type of board. This card pumps up your board. Because of his ability, Act. Once per turn, Counterblast 1, choose a face down card and turn it face up. Choose up to 3 of my units, and they gain plus 1,000 for each of my opponent's rested units. This is very good against Royals. This is good against anything that has a board on my turn, a substantial board. I usually go for plus 3. Plus 3. If plus 3 is enough, because I go into this guy, give a column plus 6, then give another row plus 3. Because if I have a row of the 12k attacker, that's gonna be 20. That's gonna be 21 by itself because it's already hitting for 19. Anyway, so that's why I run it at 2. This is your finisher. You go into the first one. If they didn't finish it off, you go into the second one. If you don't have enough Counterblast to just go into that and just ensure you the win. But that's what you do. Anyway, on to G Guardians. Now for G Guardians, I'm gonna go into the Cray Elementals first. Now you run 1 screw. You run 1 screw because Mega Colony only has 2 G Guardians, and I don't want to run them at multiples in this deck. I like Screw, because Screw is a good G-Guardian. It's a good card for its ability of discard a card from your hand. When it's placed on Vanguard, if you have a face-up card in your G-Zone, and pay a cost if you do, it gains plus 10k shield. So this is very good, so I don't have to drop that much hand. I can drop a grade 3 or a 5k just to do this guy's ability. Or if you don't, he's just a simple 26, Guardian by itself. Now, because we like our rear guards, we run 1 Dismal. We run 1 Dismal to protect my rear guards, and when you face that dreaded D-Police matchup, D-Police is 50-50. But then again, D-Police is 50-50 against any deck, in all honesty, but your D-Police matchup is alright. If you play it correctly, you should win. Unless you're playing against a Master D-Police player at my locals, then he'll be a lot tougher. But most of the time, most people aren't as good as the guy from my local, so most of the time I could just crush him with this deck. Not all the time, but I'm just saying most of the time. So he's good as a Guardian that can be retired and protecting the rear guards when they think they can laurel you, and then you prove them wrong. Okay. Then you run 1 Grease Fort. Now Grease Fort is good at a 1-of in this deck because you counterblast a lot, and he's also a good card for gaining lots of power. Because of his skill is Counterblast 1. When it's put on G Guardian, when my Vanguard is attacked by my opponent's Vanguard. Kinda sucks it has to be the Vanguard, but most of the time my opponent attacks with the Vanguard first anyway, so it makes sense. Rest all my opponent's back row, and then he gains +5 for every 2 of my opponent's rested units. So if they have 6 units on the field, it's guaranteed +15. If they have 4, plus 10. If they have 2, which most of the time they'll have at least 2 because of the Vanguard and extra rear guard, it's plus 5. So that's why I run them, just like for the extra shield value and like the fact that it can just like deny big columns from happening. So that's why I run him at 1. Would run him at more, but this deck is very counterblast heavy at times, so 1 is good. Then you play the 1 Scarab Gas, because Scarab Gas and Mega Colony is basically free against almost any deck. Most of the time, like when he's placed on G guard, when he's placed on guard circle, if my opponent has 2 resting units, he gains plus 5. So most of the time my opponent does have resting units, if their Vanguard is boosted or like they have a rear guard they attacked with already. So most of the time he's just a free 31. I really like using this guy, first stride, if their stride isn't boosted, guard, and then for 10k that's 3 to pass by itself. So that's why I like using him, because he's an easy 5k guard. Anyway. That is it for my deck profile, guys. Remember, I'm hitting you up with that Mega Colony madness. So remember to like, comment, and subscribe. And let me know if I have Giraffe cards. I could build the Giraffe deck. Let me know if you guys want to see the Giraffe deck. I don't think the Giraffe deck is that good, but let me know if you guys want to see it. Anyway, on to the next one.